Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today. Now, it's been a long while actually since we've talked about F1 2019, the game, the upcoming F1 game from Codemasters later this year. We don't know when it's going to be coming out. We haven't heard any news on it so far. I suspect hopefully in the next, 2 months, I would say, around May-ish to June, we start hearing some little bits for the F1 2019 game. But we're back again with a game ideas video because it's been a long while since we've talked about any ideas for the game. And the real-life Australian Grand Prix got me thinking, whenever I see real-life F1, I don't know about you guys, but it gets me excited about also the F1 game, and it makes me start thinking about, that just might be the YouTuber in me, but it makes me think about kind of ideas for next year's game, and taking the real life translation and how little bits of real life could be put into the game, and could make a better spectacle as a video game. So that's exactly what we're doing today. We've got 8 more ideas that I think need to be in the F1 2019 game, and they're all kind of translated from what I've seen at the real life 2019 Australian Grand Prix. So we're going to start off with number 1, which is a pretty basic idea, but better track evolution and more dramatic track evolution, I guess, because we saw a few drivers get caught out. Carlos Sainz got caught out. You had Pierre Gasly getting caught out with bad timing from Red Bull, and they couldn't get the lap in eventually at the end to get him through into Q2. And I think there needs to be maybe more dramatic track evolution like that, because right now, honestly, I don't know if some of you guys agree with me, but when you do practice sessions in career mode, the track feels pretty much the same as it would be in Q1 almost, and then to Q1 to Q3, there is a bit of difference. You can feel like the car is going that much faster in Q3 than it was in Q1, but there really isn't that stark difference, especially for tracks which are street circuits. I feel like for those specific circuits, Codemasters need to make the track evolution more dramatic, and I don't know if there's a scaling system they can use, but basically bump up the scaling to make it a lot larger on street circuits like Melbourne Park for the Australian Grand Prix, Singapore, Monaco, even places that just don't get used very often maybe. Those specific tracks have more track evolution. So, the surface is dusty. How often do we hear about drivers say, Melbourne's always quite dusty because it's obviously usually just a park, really. Just a park that you go and chill out in on weekends, usually in Melbourne. So, I think there needs to be more dramatic changes to the track from, FP1, 2, 3. Of course, you have to change the scaling for if you're doing short qualifying or short practice or whatnot, but it'd be really nice to see that. And then, in tandem with that, it'd be good to see AI cars and also the ability for the player, of course, to be knocked out in Q1 just due to the fact they've misunderstood how the track is evolving. And also, I think there maybe needs to be a bit of a random number generator system of track evolution within the qualifying session, because sometimes we've seen it in the past as well, and almost in a way like Australia, because that's how Red Bull got caught out. They admitted they were surprised at how quick the track got towards the end of the session. There maybe just needs to be a random number generator system where sometimes the track just evolves wildly faster than it has done on other previous Grand Prix you've been doing in your career mode. And the same could be said for, online for league racing. You could spice up league racing in terms of if you're doing a short qualifying session, you just have track evolution that you just didn't think was going to be there. Number 2 is going to be more fragile cars and kind of more in-depth damage systems for the cars for little bits here and there. We've talked about before, I've had the idea of, having the end-plate bargeboard areas being breakable, because how often do we see those being broken off the cars? But, in lieu of Hamilton having some bit of damage on his floor on the front of the rear tyre, Ricciardo with the damage he had with a very weird bump, I think the cars need to be that little bit more fragile in those certain areas. Have the track have those kind of pothole areas where if you go over the grass and you hit a bump quite wrong, you can lose your front wing like Ricciardo did. All the same for Hamilton, be able to break the floor. If you go over the curb maybe a bit too harshly, or if you go across the grass like Leclerc did in real life in Australia, maybe you can, have the indicator on the heads-up display say, you've got some damage on the floor, and the floor will overall kind of just decrease your downforce, so the front wing decreases dramatically, the floor may only leave a little bit of downforce on the table there. I think it'd be really nice to have that more intricate system. You have that heads-up display, and most of the time, the only things that get affected are those 4 tyres and the icon for the front wing. It'd be really cool to actually have the entire car being able to be, broken, basically, of the bargeboard area, the floor area. Obviously, I know there's going to be licensing issues, but something like the floor, you don't notice it too much, so it might not even have to be visual. To get around it, they could just say, it is broken, but visually you can't see the breakage, but it is possible to damage it a little bit, because, also that happens in practice and stuff like that. So again, that'd be cool to see. Maybe in practice, you have random failures to the floor as well, so you have to come back in and fix the floor. That takes a long time as well. Just kind of adding a bit more realism in terms of how kind of fragile and prototype-like these cars are, because they're pretty, F1 cars are essentially prototypes the entire way through the season. They're never fully finished. Number 3, now I brought this up actually, I remember last year, this was a big idea that I wanted in the game. It didn't really come through in 2018 game. Hopefully for 2019, maybe something like this could happen, because we've heard about it being talked about a lot, which is party mode on the engines, and not just for the qualifying but also the race, because we saw at the end of the Australian Grand Prix, especially Verstappen's engineer said, all right, just focus on getting Hamilton, but a lot of people are putting into quali modes, and so it'd be cool to access that quali mode during the race. We've got that maximum fuel mixture that is only there for qualifying. I think we should be able to use it in the race, and it's at our own peril. If we use it, we're going to burn a lot of fuel, and that's our fault. And at the same time, also having party mode for the entire ERS system as well, to be all intertwined. And party mode is not like overtake or hot lap mode. We know now how the system works. You go 7th and 8th gear, you got overtake mode, and then hot lap for the rest of it. You want to go fast. But I think there needs to be an actual party mode where the game, no matter what the car, the circuit, the party mode system on the ERS, if you go one more click from over to hot lap to party mode, it basically in tune lines knows where to deploy all the electrical energy, and it's literally the most efficient a system of deploying electrical energy for that one lap you're doing in qualifying Q3. And also, if you do want to have a bit of party mode in the race, you can do, but again, that will really quickly deplete your ERS system. I think that's something that needs to happen, because now more often we'll probably hear about that, especially with the whole fast lap of the Grand Prix gets you one more point if you're in the top 10. I think we're going to be hearing radio messages like we did in Australia a lot more now in the next few Grand Prix about, you can use this, diff, whatever, quali mode here, you can use Strat 7, whatever, at the end of the race to bump up the power to get you that fastest lap. Number 4 is going to be driver AI form. Now, this is an idea I've already talked about quite in depth, about having AI form from race to race, having the AI ability go up and down depending on how they go. I've talked about also having over the seasons, from one season to another, having dips and ups in terms of drivers. The drivers that are getting older might dip in form a little bit and dip in AI performance, and the younger ones might get better with time. I think we just need to see more drastic AI form from session to session in terms of, the race to race. And I think a good example of that was Valtteri Bottas. I mean, obviously, it's only one race. We'll have to see how he goes, but it is a bit of a reinvigoration over the winter, not winning a whole race in 2018 and then winning the first one in 2019. I think stuff like that has to happen in the game, from season, let's say, 3 to 4. You've been doing it the entire time. Hamilton and Vettel being the AI cars that have been winning races and being consistently there. Let's say for season 4, Leclerc just rocks up and his driver AI just got a lot more form, or Bottas rocks up and he's the one thrashing the other guy for once in the first race. I think it'd be really cool to have that, and then you continue that form on from race to race, how they do in session to session as well. FP1, how well they do in practice to qualifying to the race. You have these undulations of form, so you truly have a bit more of a fluid AI grid rather than, right now in this year's game, I can guarantee you Fernando Alonso's AI will always beat Van Dorn's. Most often than not, Vettel's AI will beat Raikkonen, but Raikkonen can sometimes surprise you. Bottas's AI will always be beaten by Hamilton in most ways, and the same can be said for Ricciardo's to Verstappen's, actually. And it just doesn't make any sense, because especially for the real life season, the game launched and Ricciardo's AI was faster than Verstappen overall consistently over the season, basically. Obviously, there's a few races here and there where Verstappen's AI would get lucky, but overall the coding makes Ricciardo's AI better in qualifying especially. But it just didn't make any sense, because by the end of the real life 2018 season, Verstappen was clearly the better guy in that Red Bull car, and so it just doesn't it just doesn't become realistic. So I think they need that fluidity and changeability of AI form throughout the entire season. Number 5 is going to be AI tyre issues in general. I feel like the AI are way too consistent on their tyres, and it was very clear from the Australian Grand Prix that was still a big deal, because Grosjean said, following cars were a little bit easier, but the tyres were still quite crucial, and you just don't get a sense that AI really get affected too much by them. I want to see scenarios where top cars could get held up by midfield teams like Gasly and Kvyat had at the Australian Grand Prix. I feel like in the game, the top 3 teams are so good, and the tyres really don't make much of a difference for any car, that the top 3 teams always make their way through the midfield pack and never really get held up massively like Gasly did pretty much the entire race by Kvyat. So I think that needs to be kind of in there, basically. They need to actually feel a bit more real and human-like with the issues they have, versus, the player has an infinite number of issues always for the tyres in terms of overheating and the tyre carcass temps. That brings me on then to number 6. Point number 6, which would be track dependency, needs to matter more compared to the R&D. So we've seen in the first round that Ferrari, they're looking so strong in pre-season, they rock up to Australia and they're just not there. And the Merc car has, pretty always suited Australia quite a fair bit, It's been always looking quite good around Melbourne. So I think there needs to be more track dependency. We already see a little bit of that because you can tell in career mode, track to track, sometimes your car does lose a bit of pace compared to other tracks, even though your R&D hasn't changed too much. But I think Australia kind of proves there needs to be maybe more swings about that because, Toro Rosso were okay-ish at Australia. Last year at Bahrain, they were bloody amazing. So I think there needs to be more dramatic swings of track dependency, perhaps. Obviously not too dramatic because it would be annoying as a player if you spent so much money and R&D points on the upgrades and then the next track is just not your track and you don't perform well. You're going to be pissed off. But just a little bit more edgy on the track dependency versus the R&D and have that bit more of a pattern of Red Bull fully being there. Obviously, like I said, you do get that because in this year's game, 2018, you do get Red Bull being better at Monaco and other places where downforce is more kind of dependent, basically, for the race. But I think a bit more dramatic changes are kind of needed. Again, kind of in lieu with what I talked about driver form and also the track evolution, just having bigger swings, really, because it seems like it is a case now these days in F1, you have bigger swings in performance just due to outside factors. Number 7, and I mentioned pre-season before, I'm going to say again, I think this year especially proves that we kind of need a bit of pre-season, pre-game to the actual season you're doing in career mode, because, it gives you a chance to maybe, if you gave us a chance to sandbag potentially, and that could feed into the R&D. Like, I'm imagining a system where, depending on how well you do in terms of lap times and whatnot, you then have a media session after the pre-season testing, and you can see how your answers, how your performances are changing, how much investment teams are putting in. So let's say you are Ferrari and you have sandbagged massively in pre-season testing. That means that Red Bull, after pre-season, you get a little update saying that it looks like that they're not going to bother investing a whole ton from pre-season to Australia for R&D, and we're going to do that because we know we've sandbagged a lot, and so we can get one over them. Vice versa, the AI could sandbag on you, and so you might think, oh, you know what, the R&D levels, if you look at the chart, it gives you like a dotted line of potential R&D development for Australia from pre-season, and you can see the dotted line for maybe, let's say, Mercedes is pretty much a flat line. So you're thinking, okay, as a team like Ferrari, okay, you know what, Mercedes are flatlining into Australia. Let's not bother with R&D spending into Australia. Let's save R&D for later on in the season. You come to Australia, you find out they're sandbagging, and they've actually got an upgrade. So the dotted line lied to you, and the actual solid line of the R&D chart into Australia is actually an upward curve rather than a straight line, if you get what I mean. Hopefully that made some sense. So basically you have the R&D chart, you have potentials in dotted line form from pre-season to Australia, and those could be fake or real. And so it's up to you to decide if you think they're going to be real or fake. And it just adds that, massive variable into Australia of what on earth is the team's going to do? Where's the R&D going to be? And finally, number 8 is going to be the ability to fast-track upgrades, because Red Bull fast-tracked their upgrade for Australia by about a month, we're told, by the media. So I think there needs to be ability to fast-track upgrades. I don't know how it would work, because you would have to have more R&D points to maybe fast-track something. That might be it, actually. I know you have the whole kind of contract system of getting upgrades faster by reducing major ultimate upgrades by a week or so, but I think there should be an extra ability on top of that for if you really want this one specific upgrade, you can spend more R&D points along with that upgrade purchase to fast track it and get it reduced by 1 week development time, let's say. And so instead of waiting 2 races, you wait 1 race for that ultimate upgrade, but you've had to pay for it. You've had to, spend more R&D points for it. I think that should be a case because we've seen it now a few times already, actually. We've heard last season, McLaren fast tracking past, Mercedes fast tracking, whatnot. I mean, Mercedes fast tracked a whole pre-season package. That was probably pre-planned a little bit, but they fast tracked it nonetheless. And so I think there needs to be fast tracking of upgrades available in the F1 2019 career mode game. So that's been my 8 ideas that I think need to be in the F1 2019 game, basing it very much off the real life 2019 Australian Grand Prix race. If you guys did enjoy the video and did agree with some of those points, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought of those in the comments below, and let me know if I missed any and you can think of any ideas coming off the real life Grand Prix that you want to see in the F1 2019 game. If you are new around here, do subscribe for weekly full-on content. I've been aarava. I'm just today, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.